The story of George. George sat across from me in my office. His eyes were downcast. His voice was hoarse and quiet. "I'm not a real man anymore, Doc." He was 65, divorced for 7 years, and completely alone. George wasn't here because of pain. Not physical pain, at least. He was here because something far deeper had been hurting. He had been struggling with erectile dysfunction for over 3 years. He tried to explain it away at first, blamed it on stress, age, work. But inside he was drowning. When we started talking, I didn't ask about medications or symptoms right away. I asked about his relationships. He paused for a long time. "There's someone," he finally said, "but I avoid her." "Why?" I asked. He looked away. Tears welled up. "Because what if it happens again? What if I fail and she sees me like that?" George had tried pills. Viagra, Cialis, Levitra. They worked, at first. Then they didn't. The doses went up. The side effects followed. Headaches, heart palpitations, nausea, insomnia. More shame than before. When a man pretends to have a headache just to avoid intimacy, it's no longer a condition. It's a wound. That line wasn't mine. It came from George. And it stuck with me. George wasn't broken. But he believed he was. His story isn't rare. In fact, it's becoming all too common. Men over 60 are silently struggling with ED. They suffer in silence. They blame themselves. They lose confidence and with it, their sense of identity. Some turn to pills and get temporary relief. Others give up. And too many never ask for help. But George did. And that changed everything. That's why I'm sharing his story. Because there are millions of George out there. Men who think they've lost their manhood. Men who believe this is the end. It's not. ED is not your ending. It's a message, a warning sign. And with the right approach, you can recover. Not with more pills, but with patience, with the right guidance, with a belief that your body, even now, is capable of healing. This video is for you, if you felt what George felt. If you've struggled in silence. If you're tired of pretending. I'm not just going to talk about pills or treatments. I'm going to walk you through George's entire recovery. How he beat ED, naturally, at age 65. No drugs. No surgeries. Just science, time, and trust. Let's begin. 3 years of silent struggle and failed solutions. George didn't start with fear. He started with hope. When his erection problems first appeared, he believed it was just temporary. A bad night. Maybe stress. Maybe something he ate. But when it happened again, and again, that hope turned into confusion. And eventually, fear. He went to his primary doctor. Got a prescription for Viagra. And the first few times it worked. He felt powerful again. Desired. Confident. But soon the dose didn't feel strong enough. He upped it. Then switched brands. Cialis. Levitra. It became a cycle. Take the pill. Wait. Perform. Collapse. George didn't realize it, but his body had started to disconnect pleasure from intimacy. He was no longer aroused by emotion or touch or closeness. He was aroused by the idea of the pill working. And when it didn't, he spiraled. The side effects hit hard. Dizziness, pounding heartbeat, facial flushing, severe insomnia. "I'd be wide awake at 3 a.m. wondering if this is how it ends," he told me. But worse than the physical symptoms was the shame. He stopped initiating contact. He avoided dating altogether. He became deeply self-conscious, even around friends. His blood pressure climbed, 145/95. His blood sugar danced around pre-diabetic levels. His doctor added statins just in case. George was slipping, not just sexually but mentally and physically. And in those moments of private defeat, something dangerous began to grow. A reflex. A learned pattern of failure. Sometimes the very thing that lifts you up, slowly drags you down. That was George's reality. What began as a solution became the problem. The pills gave him short-term success, and long-term fear. He described moments where he'd lie next to someone and pretend to be asleep, just to avoid intimacy. He'd fake a headache. He'd pull away when someone reached for him. It wasn't about desire anymore. It was about fear of failure. And fear, over time, can rewire the nervous system. In men, consistent sexual failure can create a feedback loop. Each failed attempt reinforces the brain's message. Don't even try. Eventually, George's body stopped trying. Morning erections faded. Random arousal disappeared. Even touching himself brought nothing. He told me, "It's like my body turned the switch off for good." That statement wasn't just metaphorical. There's truth behind it. Men in their 60s often experience changes in vascular health. Blood vessels narrow, especially those in the penis, the smallest and most sensitive. On top of that, testosterone naturally declines. And when we add medications like statins or beta blockers, the drive drops further. But what's often overlooked, and what George's case highlights, is the psychological trap. He didn't have performance anxiety. He had performance trauma. After enough failures, his brain anticipated failure. So it preemptively shut down arousal. Not to sabotage him, but to protect him. George's body wasn't broken. It was trying to spare him another heartbreak. But in doing so, it robbed him of connection, closeness, and confidence. There are thousands of men like George. Men who followed the advice, took the pills, watched their bodies weaken, and blamed themselves. That's the cruel part. They think it's their fault. That they're not man enough. That they're somehow defective. So they isolate. They pretend not to care. They avoid intimacy, and call it retirement. But it's not retirement. It's resignation. George didn't need more pills. He needed someone to tell him that what he was going through was normal, and reversible. He needed hope. Real hope. And that's where everything started to change. The breaking point, one appointment that changed everything. George found my podcast by accident. He had trouble sleeping, one of the many side effects from the medications, and would often listen to health content late at night. One night he clicked on an episode titled, ED Recovery Over 60, No Pills, No Shame. He told me, "I thought it was a scam. But something in your voice made me stay." A week later he booked an appointment. When I met him in person he looked tired. Not just physically, emotionally. We talked for over 90 minutes. Honestly, I barely said a word. He just needed someone to listen. He talked about his marriage, his divorce, his fears. He talked about the last time he felt like a man, and how distant that memory felt. I listened. And when he was ready, we started exploring real answers. I ordered a full blood panel. The results were telling. His total testosterone was 240 ing/DL, well below optimal. His morning cortisol was high. Blood pressure, 145/95. Resting heart rate, elevated. Cholesterol, borderline. This wasn't just ED. This was a man under chronic stress, physically and emotionally. George didn't need more medication. He needed to believe his body could love again. That became our foundation. I explained to George the 3 most common causes of erectile dysfunction in men his age. Low testosterone. After 60, testosterone drops by 1 to 2% each year. It impacts libido, energy, and erectile strength. Poor blood flow. The penile arteries are tiny, and among the first to narrow with age. High blood pressure, poor diet, and inactivity make it worse. Psychological blocks. Each failed experience wires the brain to expect failure. Over time, arousal becomes anxiety. And anxiety kills arousal. I showed him a chart linking elevated cortisol to testosterone suppression. I explained how stress hijacks the body's priorities, shifting blood away from reproduction toward survival. He nodded slowly. It was the first time someone had connected all the dots for him. Then I said something that made him lean forward. "George, I believe you can get better, but we have to stop doing what's not working. I asked him to do something most doctors wouldn't. Stop all ED pills. His eyes widened. That's what gives me a chance, he said. No, I replied. That's what's been taking your chance away. He didn't respond right away. But then he exhaled deeply. All right, he said. I'll try it your way. That moment was a turning point. He wasn't just agreeing to a plan. He was reclaiming his manhood, on his terms. No more chasing quick fixes. No more hiding. It was time to rebuild. From the inside out. And to do that, we had to shift his mindset. From performance to healing. From control to curiosity. I explained that the journey wouldn't be linear. Some weeks would feel like progress. Others would feel like failure. But if he could stay with it, if he could trust his body again, real recovery was possible. He asked me, how long will it take? I said, that depends on how long you've been at war with yourself. He smiled for the first time that day. It was small, but real. Then he said something I'll never forget. I don't need to be 25 again. I just want to stop feeling broken. That was our agreement. Not to chase youth, but to restore connection. Between George and his body. Between George and the people he cared about. Between George and the part of himself that still believed he could feel. The 90-day natural reconnection plan. George didn't walk out of my office with a prescription. He walked out with a plan. We called it the 90-day reconnection. Because it wasn't about erections. It was about rebuilding trust. With his body, his mind, and his manhood. We started with 3 pillars. 1. Boost testosterone naturally. George committed to sleeping by 10:30 p.m. every night. Testosterone is produced mostly during deep sleep, especially between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. He cut out processed sugars and started eating real food, eggs, avocado, leafy greens, and shellfish. We added strength training twice a week. Nothing extreme, just slow, compound movements to activate big muscle groups. He took short breaks from screens before bed. He stopped checking emails after 9 p.m. He even started journaling his thoughts before sleep. Over time, his sleep improved. And with it, his testosterone began to rise. 2. Improve blood flow to the penis. Every morning, George drank beetroot juice. It's high in nitrates, which convert to nitric oxide, the key molecule that helps blood vessels dilate. He started walking after every meal. A simple 10-minute walk helps regulate blood sugar and improve circulation. He also began doing Kegels, pelvic floor exercises. Most men think Kegels are for women, but they're crucial for erectile strength and control. He quit smoking, cut back on alcohol, started drinking more water. All of these help thin his blood and enhance vascular flow. 3. Retrain the brain's sexual response. This was the most important, and the most overlooked. I gave George a rule, no intercourse. For 30 days. Instead, we focused on non-sexual touch. Hand-holding. Back rubs. Eye contact. Laughter. This was about rewiring his nervous system. Associating intimacy with safety again, not performance. He was hesitant at first. But his new partner was supportive. She said, "We'll go at your pace. I just want you present." That changed everything. George didn't train to be a better lover. He trained to believe he was lovable again. The first few weeks were slow. He felt frustrated, tired, even doubtful. Some mornings nothing changed. And doubt crept in. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe it's too late. But I reminded him. Healing isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. Some days feel like you're going backward, but you're still moving forward. In week 4, something shifted. He woke up with a partial erection. Then another. And another. By week 7, he had a spontaneous erection while watching a romantic scene in a movie. He texted me. It wasn't strong. But it was mine. No pill. That moment mattered more than any number. It meant his body still remembered. We added deep breathing and meditation to help lower his cortisol. And we tracked progress not by size or duration, but by moments of confidence and peace. In week 10 he felt ready. He and his partner had their first night together. No pressure. No agenda. And for the first time in years he achieved, and maintained, a full natural erection. He cried afterward. Not out of joy, but relief. Because now he knew he wasn't broken. He was healing. It didn't stop there. He kept going. His energy increased. His confidence returned. He laughed more. Walked taller. Reconnected with old friends. He wasn't chasing an erection anymore. He was living again. That's the beauty of healing. It doesn't just fix what's broken. It restores what you forgot you had. George taught me something in those 90 days. That even in your 60s your body can respond. That manhood isn't just about performance, it's about presence. And that real recovery happens when we stop hiding and start believing. What George taught me about being a man after 60. George never looked for praise. But the change in him was undeniable. When he returned to my office after completing the 90-day plan, I barely recognized him. His posture was straighter. His eyes were clearer. He smiled without effort. He looked like a man who had reclaimed something he thought was gone forever. We didn't talk much about erections that day. We talked about life. He said, "I feel like I've come home to my body." And that's when I realized, this wasn't just about sex. This was about identity. About the quiet dignity of feeling whole again. After 65, you don't need to prove your manhood, you just need to reconnect with it. George shared a few lessons from his journey. Lesson 1, stop chasing pills. Start listening to your body. He said, the more I reached for quick fixes, the more disconnected I felt. Healing didn't begin until he slowed down and started listening to his sleep, his breath, his energy. He noticed patterns. That his erections were stronger on days he walked more. That certain foods gave him clarity while others made him foggy. That calm mornings led to better nights. Lesson 2, don't fear sexual failure, embrace it as part of recovery. He described early moments of doubt and awkwardness. But instead of shutting down, he stayed curious. He and his partner laughed through it. And that made intimacy feel safe again. There were nights when nothing happened. And instead of panicking, they held each other. That alone was healing. Lesson 3, find someone who sees you, not just your problem. George's partner was patient, kind, and unafraid of his vulnerability. That made all the difference. No pressure. No judgment. Just presence. He told me, I didn't need a solution. I needed connection. That statement stayed with me. Because as urologists, we're trained to fix things. Pipes, vessels, hormones. But sometimes healing doesn't come from fixing. It comes from feeling. There are so many men walking around like George once did. Silent. Ashamed. Convinced they've failed. But ED is not a life sentence. It's a wake-up call. A signal to reevaluate how you treat your body, your stress, your heart. George wasn't lucky. He was willing. Willing to let go of shortcuts. Willing to sit with discomfort. Willing to try something different. And in doing so, he found something powerful. He found that intimacy wasn't just about getting hard. It was about softening too. Letting down the armor. Allowing himself to be seen. The strongest man in the room is often the one brave enough to say, I'm scared, but I'm not done. That kind of courage isn't advertised in commercials. But it's what real healing looks like. He's not perfect. He still has days when energy is low or emotions feel heavy. But now he meets those days with kindness. He no longer measures himself by inches or minutes. He measures himself by how connected he feels. I asked him, if you could tell other men one thing, what would it be? He paused for a moment, looked out the window and said, you're not broken. You're just buried. Dig yourself out, one honest choice at a time. Then he looked back at me and added, don't wait for someone to save you. Start showing up for yourself. Every day. In small ways. Even if it's just putting your hand over your heart and saying, I'm still here. That was George. Not a patient. Not a diagnosis. But a man, fully present, deeply human, and finally free. And I realized something else that day. As much as I had helped George, he had helped me more. Your journey starts today. If you've made it this far, you're already different. You're not avoiding the truth. You're looking it in the eye. That alone makes you stronger than you think. Erectile dysfunction can feel like the end of manhood. But it's not. It's the beginning of something more honest. A conversation with your body. A reconnection with your strength. A return to presence. You don't need to be who you were at 25. You need to honor who you are at 65. Your body still works. It just needs different care. Your desire is still alive. You just need space to breathe again. And your manhood? It's not lost. It's waiting. For you to slow down. To listen. To touch with intention. To lead with patience. You're not too old. You're just on a different path. Walk it like it matters, because it does. George did it. So can you. And if no one else has told you this yet today, you are not broken. You are not weak. You are not alone. This is your journey. But you don't have to walk it in silence. Start small. Maybe go for that evening walk. Cook something nourishing. Write down what your body's been trying to tell you. Text someone you trust. This is what reconnection looks like. One step, one choice at a time. And if today is your first step, I'm proud of you. Truly. Leave a comment below. Tell me what resonated. Or just say, I'm still here. Like this video if it gave you hope. Share it with someone who needs this message. And subscribe, because this is just the beginning. We've got so much more to talk about. Man to man. Heart to heart. No shame. No shortcuts. Just the truth.